Welcome back to Next Gen Investing. It's now time for FOMO, and today we are looking at Nvidia, as it has been, I would say, arguably one of the most important movers of the week, shedding about 9% now week to date. So here now joining me to discuss more on all things Nvidia is my co-host today, Caroline Woods. And Caroline, I think that this has been, the main focus of the entire year, no surprise, but I also feel like it's been a great way to read, the rest of the overall market. Anytime I need to look at the NASDAQ or the S&P, look no further than Nvidia. And I think that has been the case for so long, and then it also adds a massive risk when Nvidia sells off, obviously.
Most certainly. I know when you said the most important stock of the week, I immediately went and thought, I'm pretty sure that this has been the most important stock for at least a year. Obviously, we've talked about it so much. It gets a lot of airtime here on Schwab Network. There are certainly perks to being the world's most valuable chip maker, but there are also downsides as well. Obviously we spent a lot of time talking about yesterday's sell-off, the 9.5% downturn that it took. And also it's getting some regulatory scrutiny, Jenny, which could be contributing to yesterday's move. We were talking about on Fast Market, maybe there was a leak because it came out later yesterday. Doesn't seem to be doing all that much today. Investors sort of deciding what to do with it. Shares are up about 0.8% right now. They were 2% lower, 2% higher. They've been flat, so all over the place. But the U.S. Justice Department did issue subpoenas to Nvidia and other companies as part of this broader antitrust investigation. According to Bloomberg News, they had previously delivered questionnaires, but now they've sent legally binding requests to the chip maker. Antitrust officials are concerned that Nvidia is making it harder to switch to other suppliers, and also that Nvidia penalizes buyers that don't exclusively use its AI chips. Now, as part of this DOJ probe, investigators are also concerned that about the Nvidia's acquisition of Run AI, which it was announced back in April. Run AI, of course, makes basically software for managing AI computing. There are concerns that the combination of the two companies would make it even more difficult for customers to switch away from Nvidia chips, and regulators are basically investigating whether or not Nvidia gives preferential pricing or supply to customers who only use its technology or buy its complete systems. So that's, of course, all according to Bloomberg News. In responding to questions about the probe, Nvidia really just touted the speed of its chips and the quality of its products, saying Nvidia wins on merit as reflected in our benchmark results and value to customers who can choose whatever solution is best for them. So Nvidia shares up about 1% right now, still down about 8.5% this week. Obviously, it's only the second day of trading of this week. It's a holiday shortened week. But if you take a look and zoom out, Nvidia shares up 120% year to date, 125% over the past 1 year. So while they are, off the highs, they've still had such an impressive run higher, and adding a little bit to that run today.
Yeah, and I would say it's frankly impressive the way how this name has been able to turn things around, although I guess yesterday was its most substantial day of selling. I mean, yesterday we saw it shed almost $280 billion of market value, obviously in just one single session. That was the largest one-day decline on record for any U.S. company, which is just in itself something ridiculous. I mean, Caroline, I have said this over and over today, and I keep saying million because billion to me is just not even feasible that a company can have grown as substantially as this name has. I mean, we talk about the way it was able to surpass a name like Apple for market value. I believe Apple's taken back the throne and Microsoft has as well, but briefly, Nvidia was the most valuable company in the world, and I just feel like this is what happens. You put the entire fate of the stock market in one company, and things are now being potentially faced with legal issues and overall maybe market, I'd say valuation concerns, and Nvidia takes the blame. But I mean, Nvidia has also put the market on its back this entire year.
Yeah, I think the moral of that story is 9.5% of nearly $3 trillion is a whole lot of money, right? We certainly learned that yesterday. A few other things to keep in mind. You talked about, obviously valuations being called into question. Competition is another headwind that Nvidia has to face. and it hasn't necessarily caused analysts to be any less bullish on the name, despite the fact that some of the other competitors are trying to catch up, like the AMDs of the world. 92% of analysts still have a buy rating on shares of Nvidia. The price target is $147, the median price target. So still, quite a bit of upside from current levels, according to Wall Street, back above those highs. But they also are facing, obviously, export controls to China and competition over there. And there was this interesting Financial Times report on that that's pointing out that China's attempts to compete with Nvidia's chips seem to be falling a bit flat, pointing out that software is bug-ridden, saying that many Huawei customers, so Huawei really kind of ending up being the front runner there as a domestic solution because Nvidia can't ship its most high-power chips over to China because of U.S. export controls, saying many Huawei customers are complaining about performance issues and difficulties switching from Nvidia products. They say that the company's chips are still far behind Nvidia's initial training of models. That's according to several industry insiders. So it's interesting, as there's this regulatory scrutiny that Nvidia forces people to use their chips, that some of the competitors' chips out there just aren't up to snuff. This, of course, all according to the Financial Times, which really just goes to show the power of Nvidia right now.
It does, and I would say that power seemingly, whether it's for evil or for good, it seems like it can move in either direction. Although I will say, overwhelmingly so, it's been for the positive, it seems like, this year. I just think it's now an interesting move from the DOJ to go after a company that has been like the crown prince of the overall AI trade, which I guess is maybe the concern, is that they're too much dominant, and that's where we'll have to see how the chips sort of fall here and what this means, like legal ramification wise. But still, Nvidia hanging on to a near percent rally on the day. We are seeing some weakness in the overall market here, but still a relatively quiet day. I know relative to yesterday, Caroline, but we will leave it there for our FOMO segment, for our Nvidia talk, as I'm sure we'll be revisiting this name several times this week.